You've been lied to your entire life. And the worst part, you've been lying to yourself, too. Right now, as you're watching this, there's someone out there living the life you convinced yourself was impossible. They're getting the respect you beg for. They're commanding the rooms you shrink in. They're building the empire you dream about while scrolling through other people's success at 200 a.m., feeling that familiar ache in your chest, that burning question that keeps you awake. When is it going to be my turn? I used to ask myself that same question. I used to watch people half as smart as me get twice the opportunities. I used to wonder why I was always the one explaining, justifying, proving my worth to people who wouldn't recognize talent if it slapped them across their mediocre faces. I felt that rage, that white-hot fury when you realize you've been playing a game where the rules were designed to keep you losing. But here's what changed everything for me, and it's going to change everything for you. The game isn't rigged against you. You just never learned the real rules. While you were being taught to be nice and wait your turn, others were learning how power actually works. They were studying the psychology of influence while you were studying how to be likable. They were building unshakable confidence while you were building elaborate apologies for existing. The truth that nobody wants to tell you, the reason you're not where you want to be, isn't because you're not good enough. It's because you're still asking permission from people who will never give it to you. You're still waiting for someone else to validate what you already know about yourself. You're still playing by rules that were written by people who needed you to stay exactly where you are. But what if you stopped asking? What if you stopped waiting? What if you stopped being the victim of other people's insecurities and started being the architect of your own inevitable rise? Because that's exactly what's about to happen. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn the 7 psychological principles that separate the people who get everything they want from the people who get what they're given. You're going to understand why some people command respect without demanding it, why some people get opportunities without begging for them, why some people live like kings while others serve like subjects. This isn't theory. This isn't motivation. This is surgical precision applied to the mechanics of human psychology. By the time you finish watching this, you won't just think differently. You'll move differently, speak differently, exist differently in every room you enter. Now I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I'm no longer asking, I am choosing. Type it like you mean it, because after today, asking permission will feel like betraying yourself. Number 1, your mouth is your enemy. I learned this lesson the hard way when I was 23. Sitting in a conference room full of people who made more money in a month than I made in a year. I was so desperate to prove I belonged there that I filled every pause with nervous chatter, every silence with desperate attempts at wit. I thought participation meant talking. I thought value meant volume. I was wrong, devastatingly, embarrassingly wrong. The most powerful person in that room barely said 10 words the entire meeting. But when he spoke, everyone leaned forward. When he asked a question, the temperature shifted. When he remained silent while others rambled, you could feel them slowly realizing they were revealing too much, saying too much, showing too much of their hand. That's when it hit me. Your mouth is your enemy. Every word you speak is information you're giving away for free. Every explanation you offer is a weakness you're advertising. Every time you fill an uncomfortable silence, you're telling the room that their comfort matters more than your power. Silence makes people terrified because it forces them to confront what they're really thinking. When you stop rushing to fill every pause, something beautiful happens. People start projecting their fears onto your quiet confidence. They assume you're judging them, evaluating them, seeing through their masks. And here's the devastating truth. You are. While they're talking, they're showing you exactly who they are. They're revealing their insecurities, their desperation, their pressure points. But when you're always talking, you're the one being dissected. You're the one showing your cards while they keep theirs hidden. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Your silence creates a canvas where people paint their own version of your thoughts, your judgments, your power. They fill your silence with their own fears. And suddenly, you're not just another person in the room. You're the person everyone is trying to impress. I started practicing this immediately. Instead of jumping into conversations, I started observing them. Instead of proving I was smart, I started letting others prove they weren't as smart as they thought. Instead of competing for airtime, I started controlling the rhythm of every interaction simply by choosing when my words were worth the room's attention. The transformation was immediate and undeniable. People started coming to me for my opinion instead of me desperately offering it. They started working harder for my approval because I stopped giving it away for free. They started wondering what I was thinking because I stopped thinking out loud. Here's what nobody tells you about silence. It's not just the absence of sound, it's the presence of power. The person who can sit comfortably in silence while others squirm is the person who controls the energy of the room. They don't need to speak to lead. They don't need to explain to influence. They don't need noise to command attention. Silence isn't the absence of power. It's the proof that you don't need noise to control the room. Number 2, your feelings are not your facts. 2 years ago, someone I trusted completely destroyed me. Not physically, not financially, but emotionally. They took everything I had shared with them in confidence and used it as ammunition in a room full of people whose respect I desperately wanted. I sat there listening to my private struggles being twisted into public entertainment, feeling that familiar burn of humiliation crawling up my throat. My first instinct was to explode, to defend myself, to explain what really happened, to make them understand how wrong they were, how much they had hurt me, how betrayed I felt. I wanted to scream until my voice gave out. I wanted them to feel even a fraction of what they had put me through. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was intuition. But I sat there in complete silence while my world burned around me. And I learned the most valuable lesson of my life. Your emotions are not your identity. They're information. They're temporary chemical reactions that you can observe, analyze, and then choose whether or not to act on. That moment of betrayal didn't break me. It revealed something more powerful than revenge could ever be. The ability to remain completely calm while someone else loses control. While they were showing everyone in that room exactly who they really were, I was showing everyone exactly who I was becoming. Here's what emotional untouchability actually looks like. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't react, you collect data. When someone betrays you, you don't collapse, you take notes. When someone tries to manipulate your emotions, you don't give them the satisfaction of success. You give them the discomfort of failure. This isn't about becoming a robot. This isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending you don't care about anything. This is about understanding that your emotional reactions are choices, not reflexes. This is about realizing that the person who stays calm during chaos becomes the person everyone else looks to for stability. Machiavelli once said, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." But this isn't about making people afraid of you through aggression. This is about making people respect the fact that you cannot be emotionally manipulated, controlled, or predicted by anyone who thinks they know which buttons to push. When you become emotionally untouchable, something incredible happens. People start coming to you during their crisis because they know you won't add to their chaos. They start trusting you with bigger responsibilities because they know you won't crumble under pressure. They start seeing you as leadership material because they know you can make clear decisions when everyone else is drowning in feelings. But here's the part that will change your life forever. When you master your emotional responses, you start seeing other people's emotional reactions as information about them, not verdicts about you. When someone gets angry at you for setting a boundary, you don't see it as evidence that you were wrong. You see it as evidence that your boundary was necessary. When someone tries to guilt you for pursuing your goals, you don't see it as proof that you're selfish. You see it as proof that your success threatens their comfort with mediocrity. Your emotional reactions should be a choice, not a reflex. Master this, and you'll never again be controlled by anyone who thinks they know how to make you dance to their music. Number 3, control information like your life depends on it. I used to be an open book. I thought transparency was honesty. And honesty was virtue. I shared my struggles, my plans, my fears, my dreams with anyone who showed even casual interest. I mistook oversharing for connection and vulnerability for strength. I was wrong about everything. The wake-up call came when I realized that every piece of personal information I had shared was being used against me. My struggles became evidence of my weakness. My dreams became jokes at my expense. My fears became weapons in other people's hands. I had given away my most valuable currency, information about myself for free, to people who were collecting it like ammunition for future battles. Information is power, not money, not connections, not even talent. Information. Who has it? Who needs it? Who controls the flow of it? This determines who holds the real power in any situation. While you were being taught that sharing is caring, others were learning that knowledge is leverage. Every conversation you have is an intelligence-gathering operation. Every person you meet is either gathering information about you or sharing information about themselves. The question is, are you conscious of this exchange, or are you accidentally giving away state secrets while they're collecting classified intelligence? Here's what changed everything for me. I started treating my personal information like a classified government document. Not because I had anything to hide, but because I finally understood that mystery creates respect, scarcity creates value. And the less people know about your internal process, the more they have to respect your external results. Watch the most powerful people you know. How much do you really know about their private struggles, their detailed plans, their moment-to-moment emotional state? Almost nothing. And that's not an accident. They understand that when people don't know how you do what you do, they're forced to respect the fact that you do it. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally," while others are eventually forced to reveal their entire hand when circumstances demand it. You're going to be strategic about what you reveal and when you reveal it. Your personal information, your challenges, your strategies, your next moves, these are privileges to be earned, not rights to be assumed. But here's the crucial part. While you're becoming selective about what you share, you need to become systematic about what you gather. Pay attention to what people tell you when they think you're not paying attention. Listen to what they reveal about themselves when they're trying to impress you, gain your sympathy, or justify their failures. People will tell you everything you need to know about them if you're patient enough to listen and smart enough to remember. They'll tell you their weaknesses while complaining about their problems. They'll tell you their strategies while bragging about their successes. They'll tell you their fears while explaining why they can't do what you're doing. This isn't manipulation. This is awareness. This isn't taking advantage. This is paying attention. When you understand people's motivations, their pressure points, their deepest needs, you can create value for them in ways that serve your goals too. When you control information, you control options. When you control options, you control outcomes. Information isn't meant to be hoarded forever. It's meant to be deployed at exactly the right moment for maximum impact. Learn this and you'll never again be surprised by someone else's moves because you'll have seen them coming long before they made them. Number 4, make yourself irreplaceable through ruthless competence. I spent 3 years being the nicest person at every job I ever had. I was agreeable, accommodating, always willing to help, never causing problems, flying under the radar, and hoping that someone would notice how pleasant I was to work with. I thought job security came from being liked. I thought getting ahead meant not making waves. Then I watched someone half as nice, but twice as competent get promoted over me again and again. And that's when I realized the brutal truth that nobody wants to tell you. Nice doesn't make you necessary. Agreeable doesn't make you valuable. Being easy to work with doesn't guarantee anything except being easy to replace. You know what does? Being so undeniably good at what you do that replacing you would cost more time, money, and risk than keeping you around and paying you exactly what you're worth. Even when you're demanding respect, setting boundaries, and refusing to accept treatment that doesn't match your value. This was the most painful lesson I ever learned, because it required me to admit that I had been using likability as a substitute for competence. I had been hoping that being pleasant would somehow compensate for being ordinary. I had been trying to secure my position through personality instead of performance. Competence is your insurance policy against other people's moods, preferences, and changing loyalties. When you're irreplaceably good at something important, people have to deal with you as you are, not as they wish you were. They might not like your directness, your boundaries, your unwillingness to participate in office politics, but they need your results more than they need their comfort. Here's what building irreplaceable competence actually looks like. You don't just do your job. You understand your industry better than people who've been in it twice as long. You don't just meet expectations. You anticipate needs that your boss doesn't even know they have yet. You don't just solve problems. You prevent crisis that everyone else would have stumbled into blindly. Machiavelli once said, "There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things." This is exactly why most people avoid becoming irreplaceable. It requires taking risks, challenging existing systems, proposing better ways of doing things. It requires the courage to be wrong sometimes in exchange for the possibility of being extraordinarily right. But here's what happens when you commit to this level of competence. People stop questioning your methods and start studying them. They stop trying to manage you and start trying to keep you. Your value becomes so obvious that arguing with you becomes counterproductive even when they disagree with your approach. I learned this by becoming obsessed with being the best at something that mattered. Not the most liked, not the most cooperative, not the most available, the most valuable. I studied every aspect of my field until I knew things that people with decades more experience didn't know. I solved problems that had been accepted as just how things are. I made myself the person who made everything around them function better, smoother, more profitably. The transformation was immediate and undeniable. Suddenly, people who used to dismiss my opinions were asking for my advice. People who used to see me as replaceable were offering me better opportunities. People who used to take me for granted were competing to keep me around. When you reach this level, something beautiful happens. You stop competing with other people and start competing with previous versions of yourself. You stop worrying about job security and start choosing between opportunities. You stop asking for raises and start negotiating partnerships. Most importantly, you stop being afraid of other people's opinions because your results speak louder than their critiques. When you're irreplaceably competent, confidence isn't something you have to fake or build. It's something you earn through undeniable evidence of your worth. Competence is the foundation of every other form of power. Build it first, build it ruthlessly, and everything else becomes negotiable. Number 5. Never explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. 5 years ago, I made a decision that changed my entire life trajectory. I left a stable job that everyone thought I was crazy to leave to pursue something that everyone thought I was stupid to pursue. The reaction was swift and brutal. Family members questioned my sanity. Friends predicted my failure. Colleagues whispered about my arrogance, my selfishness, my inevitable crash back to reality. I spent months trying to explain my reasoning. I presented detailed plans, financial projections, market research. I tried to help them understand that this wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. This wasn't reckless. It was strategic. This wasn't fantasy. It was vision. Nothing I said mattered. They had already decided who I was, what I was capable of, and what I deserved. They had made up their minds based on their own fears, their need to feel superior, their investment in keeping me in a box that made them comfortable. These people weren't confused about my potential. They were threatened by it. That's when I learned the most liberating truth of my life. There are people in this world who are not confused about you. They're committed to their version of you because changing their mind would require them to change their entire worldview. They need you to fail because your success would mean they have no excuse for their mediocrity. You cannot logic someone out of a position they didn't logic themselves into. You cannot convince someone to respect you when their entire identity depends on feeling superior to you. You cannot make someone see your worth when they need you to be worthless to feel valuable themselves. Machiavelli once said, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. For everyone can see and few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The people committed to misunderstanding you aren't interested in experiencing who you really are. They're interested in maintaining their version of who you appear to be, regardless of evidence to the contrary." Here's what changes everything when you stop explaining yourself to people who aren't genuinely trying to understand you.